So a lot of times people are so quick to pass judgment on what they see and what they think they know. First of all, everything is not as it seems. And second of all, who are we to pass judgment? Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Let me share a commentary on this. The scripture is not saying not to ever judge, but rather is saying with whatever severity you judge someone else, God will judge you. We cannot, even if we wanted to, be someone else's judge. Jesus is the final judge, and each person shall stand before him in judgment. We must not condemn someone else for smoking if we smoke. We must not tell someone God will not forgive them for overeating if we overeat. We need to examine ourselves and get forgiveness for our own sins before we start pointing them out in someone else. Hello, somebody. God expects us to consider in ourselves if someone is truly of God before we blindly follow them. But it is not for us to say whether or not someone is saved. That is only between that person and God. Whatever we might say is just our opinion. Verse 16 of this same chapter says, "By their fruit you will recognize them." Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Their fruits refers not only to actions of their lives, but also to the doctrines they proclaim. The two trees are contrasted in relation to the fruit they produce. Every good tree bringeth forth good fruit consistently, while a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit continually. False doctrine cannot restrain the flesh, so false prophets manifest wickedness. Let's go ahead on over to John 7:24, and it says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." I'll read that in the NLT. "Look beneath the surface so you can judge correctly." And I'm going to read it in the Easy English. "Do not quickly decide whether something is right or wrong just because of what you see. Instead, think about it carefully. Then you will decide in the right way." So, there is a right type of judgment versus the wrong type. Taking this verse and some others, we can put together a description of the sinful type of judgment. Superficial judgment is wrong. Passing judgment on someone based solely on appearances is sinful. John 7:24. It is foolish to jump to conclusions before investigating the facts. Proverbs 18:13. And these verses, scriptures I'm throwing out, you can jot them down if you want to, further study them for yourselves. But I'm just going to kind of go through them briefly, just so it puts the whole thing into better context. Simon the Pharisee passed judgment on a woman based on her appearance and reputation, but he could not see that the woman had been forgiven. Simon thus drew Jesus' rebuke for his unrighteous judgment. And that is coming from Luke 7th chapter. And you can find that particular reading in verses 36 through 50. Hypocritical judgment is wrong. Jesus' command not to judge others in Matthew 7:1 is preceded by comparisons to hypocrites. And that will be from Matthew 6:2, 5, 16, and followed by a warning against hypocrisy, Matthew 7, verses 3 through 5. When we point out the sin of others while we ourselves commit the same sin, we condemn ourselves. Romans 2:1. Harsh, unforgiving judgment is wrong. We are always to be gentle toward everyone. Titus 3:2. It is the merciful who will be shown mercy. Matthew 5:7. And as Jesus warned, in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. And of course, that's Matthew 7:2. Self-righteous judgment is wrong. We are called to humility, and God opposes the proud. James 4:6. The Pharisee in Jesus' parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector was confident in his own righteousness, and from that proud position judged the publican. However, God sees the heart and refused to forgive the Pharisee's sin. And that's coming from Luke 18:9 through 14. Untrue judgment is wrong. The Bible clearly forbids bearing false witness. Proverbs 19:5. Slander no one. There's a lot of slandering going on. Titus 3:2. So I brought all these points out so nothing would be taken out of context, and to thoroughly explain how we are to properly judge. In regards to the title of this video, if someone judged me during a particular season in my life where I was immature in my faith, although I had faith, but was not allowing my faith to rule over my life, what you would see was someone that didn't look the part of being righteous, holy. Thus, you would condemn me because I was saying I was a Christian, yet my life was not reflecting that entirely. So what the mere eye is seeing is not exactly as it seems, because God is yet doing, or was yet, well, he is still yet doing a work in me. But at that time, in that season where I didn't look like I was of the family of faith, God was yet growing me, transforming me into more likeness of him. And it is a process. And sometimes I'm looking right to those mere eyes, but sometimes I'm not, because I'm not always going to look like you need me to look. Surprise! I'm human. We're human. We're still in this fleshly body. Romans 7:15. I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. We see in this verse the struggle that all mankind faces. The struggle is truly between our flesh and spirit. Paul desires to have his spirit in control at all times. He says that sometimes his flesh wins out. It is a daily struggle for all of us. So, I am not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. Romans 7:17. Paul is saying that his sin did not flow out of his new redeemed inner being, but from his unredeemed humanness, his flesh. Romans 7:18. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. No man's flesh follows God. Man's flesh must be crucified for the spirit to reign. The flesh serves as a base camp from which sin operates in the Christian's life. It is not sinful inherently, but because of its fallenness, it is still subject to sin and is thoroughly contaminated. The flesh is that part of the believer's present being that remains unredeemed. I said all that to say is we are so quick, or people can be so quick to pass judgment on someone from what they see in that particular season in their life, but not really knowing what a particular person is going through. You're just assuming, and maybe you've heard different stuff from other people, haven't directly talked to the source, so you're just assuming. You're just gathering your own opinion. You don't really have the facts of the situation. So it behooves us, rather than to attempt to pass judgment on people, to pray for our brothers and sisters when they are in a particular season in their life that they are struggling, and that season doesn't look like they are even of the faith because they are going through some stuff, or they are, God is doing a work in them. They're going through their wilderness and it's a struggle. So a while ago, I did a video on Tye Tribbett, and I got so many comments from that video because a lot of people were, that you would have thought these people live with Tye. As we all know, with social media, or with media in general, what's being presented is typically there's an agenda behind it. And sometimes, like, if you go on people's social media, that life can look so much different. The life on their social media page can look so much different than the real life that they're actually experiencing. And so we just see what is being pushed at us to see, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how things are. And so in saying that, with the Tye Tribbett video, a lot of people were saying, Tye, because I think the video was basically, Tye was exposing the evil agenda in the gospel music industry. And a lot of people was like, well, yeah, Tye is just, trying to get back in the spotlight because, he knew what he was getting into when he got into that, yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, let's turn that mirror and look at us. We're so quick to go after him, not realizing what he's going through. He probably had an ideal. Now, I don't know for sure, but let's just let's just throw this out there. He knew that the gospel industry was a certain way, but he knew he belonged to Christ. So he felt like, well, this is an area maybe I can step into and be a light amongst the darkness. And so, and then he may have had a zeal for that. And so he did that. And now being in it, he's seeing more and more how things are really corrupt. And he wanted to bring this out. But maybe it, again, is a struggle because his flesh is wanting one thing versus what his spirit wants. So to what's being presented sometimes may look like he's on the side of the world, when in actuality he may be going home at night really praying, asking God to help him, but we don't see that part. And of course, media will never bring good stuff up. They always want to bring the bad stuff, so you focus on that. And when you focus on that, you just assume that your premonition about something was right when it wasn't really. And instead of like condemning an individual, then we should be offering prayer, because no one is beyond prayer with the breath still in our body. And you can still pray for these people, because how many times have you heard, well, I wouldn't be here today if someone hadn't been praying for me. Grandmama prayed for me. Somebody was praying for me, and that's why I'm still here. So we need to start praying for people instead of condemning them, or instead of feeling like we're better than someone else because we're the measure that we're proving holiness by is by our own standard. How many of our own selves have we done something and then you look back over it and you're thinking, well, I could have, but thank God for his grace and mercy. That's why any of us is here today. It's not nothing that we've done, but it's only because God's grace and mercy, because even on our best day of doing good, it's still as filthy rags. So people need to humble their hearts and understand that we're not to take credit for anything, but it's Jesus. It is the graciousness of him, his loving kindness, his mercy, that any of us is able to do anything of good. So yeah, I just felt the need to share that because there was a particular video that had showed up on my YouTube feed, and it's actually was Ty being restored to his marriage. In this video, Ty is saying how God rebuked him for him trying to get this worldly success. He was rebuked for that, and he had to apologize to his wife because he was so desperate in trying to go after that worldly success, and he came to a point where he realized that it wasn't doing anything for him, these Grammys that he had acquired. But so I say that to say he had a moment where if people were looking at him where he was desperately going after this, they were seeing him at that season and passing judgment on just that they saw, not realizing that God was still working on him and doing something within him to change him to come out of that mindset, which he has. So yeah, just do not be passing judgment on people in their seasons of life that they go through, but rather pray. We always come to where we are doing something and then we get a conviction in our spirit. But if someone is seeing us in that season before that conviction comes, God is yet working in us, but they're not seeing the work that God is doing in us. They're just seeing us in that season, not really knowing what we're dealing with and how God is working on us. People will just naturally assume something, and that's why it's not good to assume, and that's why it's not good to pass judgment, but rather we should be praying for the individual, that God will strengthen them through what it is they're going through. We don't know what they're dealing with, but God knows, so we just lift our brothers and sisters up in prayer and let God handle the rest. And so before I end this video, I just want to show this screenshot that I saw on Instagram. It reads, "It's not our job to convert people. It's not our job to save people. It's not our job to convict people. It's not our job to convince people. It's our job to tell people. The convincing, convicting, converting, and saving is the work of the Holy Spirit." All right, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. I pray that you were blessed by what I was saying, and I say it all in love because, I used to be someone that would pass judgment on someone just looking at where they are in their particular season. But as I've gotten more closer to God, more, my faith has become more developed, and I'm really truly seeing that it's only because of what God has done in my life, because of his grace and mercy, that I'm even able to do what I do right now. So who am I to look at someone at their season and think that, they're not counted as worthy? Jesus came to die for all of us. Pray for one another, build each other up, encourage one another. in the love of Jesus Christ. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Peace out.